pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Carlos Brown, letting you know that we're on the move. You can now catch the Carlos Brown Show beginning this July on the Black College Sports Network each and every Saturday from 11 to 1 Eastern Time. That's 10 to 12 Central Time. Same time, new place. On Facebook at the Carlos Brown Show and Black College Sports Network. Online at www.mybcsn.net and on the BCSN app available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. This is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
tofu, and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock.
In downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock.
In downtown Atlanta.
For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992.
Or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com.
For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Yeah. I love my HBCU, and boy, I love it, I love it, I love my HBCU, and man, I hope my team they won one, I hope my team they won one, yeah, man, I hope my team they won one, I hope my team they won one, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse, but if they won, keep tab, I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment and Charles Bishop is sick. And I know some of y'all gonna say, yeah, I bet he is. No, he's literally sick, or at least his wife is. So with all respect for that, let's say prayers. The Omicron is out there real. And so we need to stay vigilant and stay safe. But no, we'll get to rub him a little bit when he gets back to it. But we want to make sure that all of those out there that are safe. With that being said, I have Luke Williams, one of the gurus in this, one of the beginner folks that got me started in this, to be truthful with you, and supported me along the way. And he is truly an encyclopedia in so many different ways of what he does. So I think we're in good hands. Let me formally introduce everybody that doesn't know Mr. Carl Luke Williams, as we call him in these parts. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, Kenyatta. Just back from that 4 or 5 days in Atlanta. Great trip, great game, great environment. I spent my whole page today on the Black College Sports page really talking about the game, photos from the game, things that happened around the game. So glad to be with you today.
Tell them again how they can go get that. I know most of our listeners are very aware of it, but you never know. There may be some new folks that are not as aware of you as we may think they should be. So if you would, go ahead and tell them how they can get all your information, because you certainly keep all of us informed. I provide your content to our listeners and giving me updates and news and giving me a perspective that I can't quite get anywhere else. So let them know.
Yeah, this is my 28th year, Doc. And I've been with my partner in Good Things, Eric Moore, who recently suffered a stroke. So Eric is on the mend. I talked to him while I was at the Celebration Bowl. He's doing much better, but my page is posted every week on Anadan.com. For the last 23 years, we've been on Anadan. So Eric and I started this journey together back in 1994. Also, if you email me at bcsp.editor@gmail.com, then I'll add you to our mailing list, which is free. Our page is primarily provided to African-American newspapers around the country. We're currently in about 10 of those newspapers. But if you want to get on the mailing list, just send me an email at bcsp.editor@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to add you. We also, right now, I'm also for the last 3-4 months, also working with HBCU Game Day. My good friend, long time guy that I've known, Tyler Carr, along with the HBCU Game Day founder and my road dog, Stephen J. Gaither, as well as Wally Pitt. I've been knowing Wally and his family. They were the owners of the Winston-Salem Chronicle, the black newspaper in Winston-Salem that I one time wrote news and features for. Wow. So I've been knowing all of these guys a while. Stephen is the young pup of the group, but he's the founder of HBCU Game Day. And he and I have been going up and down the road, man, from hither, thither, and yon, north, south, east, and west to the various HBCU events for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you shared not just those individuals, which they've come on this show and guest, and we have great partnership with them, but you also laid the connectors. And I'm not sure that everybody understands that we have these connectors, whether it's Roy, and a lot of people don't realize now it's, kind of the thing to be in the HBCU sports, which is not a bad thing, because it elevates us personally, in my opinion. Sure. But I don't think people realize sometimes how many people have worked and toiled, I should say, in this industry to get the point where they are, and our paths has crossed. And for the most part, this has been a very familial type of construction. So we've worked with each other and helped each other, nurture each other in some form of fashion. So I'm really excited that you did that. Welcome to episode 223 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As I said at the beginning, and just to re-announce for those that logged in, Mike Washington is on assignment trying to take care of business, and Charles Bishop is getting healthy, if you would, in terms of making sure that his family totality is healthy. So let's keep him in prayers. He will be back. As I said earlier, yeah, he's sick, but he's really sick in terms of this situation. So we're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University, Houston, Texas. I've told you all that we will release our national champion, but like good stewards of the media, we're going to kind of tease this out. And towards the end of the show, you will get our announcement based on who is the 2021 HBCU national champions from Dr. Cavil's perspective. I will share this before we get into some of the news of the day. I'm proud of the fact that I was the steward. Carl can tell you some backstories of folks from inside HBCUs, but I was one of the first from outside of HBCUs that understood a unique marketing ploy, is kind of the way that I looked at it, and separated the polls in terms of two groupings, what I call the major division and the mid-major division. This goes back literally to 2002. So next year will be our 20th anniversary. So you talk about Luke telling you how long he's been in the business. That gives you some indication how long I have been toiling with this. Shout out to Ken Rashad that gave me one of the first platforms to put up my poll ranking that is now HBCU Sports.com, back when it was SWAC page and then transitioned to TPSN. You talk about Eric Moore. He was also another platform that allowed me to put my poll on that platform. And over the years, people have respected the poll. They may not always agree with it, but they at least respected it. It was done weekly. We kept up with it. And so we've moved on into some men's and women's poll rankings, baseball, before Black College Nines has taken over, and I vote in those polls now. So we've shifted and shafted and moved around to try to get this done. And so I'm excited that today is one of the culminations of people's expectation to figure out just how we think and why we think. And we'll break all that down later in the show, how all this comes together. But I did want to share that earlier. At this point, there's essentially 4 national champions with the various poll rankings out there. I'm not ashamed, and I don't have any problem announcing all these folks. You know, as I said, I'm in the business about doing it. And if I do what I'm supposed to do, people will respect if they don't agree. So I can talk about Box to Roll and all these other groups. Luke will have his rankings coming out and can break that down. So we have some that do a list where they put all HBCUs together. We have some that have a split poll that really separates the poll that came after we did it, but they understand the importance for whatever reason. And I'll even get Luke to give you a chance to tell you his perspective on this, so we can kind of really get to going in a thought process of what takes place. Then we'll get into some news. We'll talk a little bit about the the big game, as they call it in a lot of parts down here, certainly for HBCU. That's the Cricket Wireless Celebration Bowl, and what we thought took place in that game. We'd like to hear and see what you're typing in and see your thoughts on what took place. And we'll take you behind the scenes a little bit so you can get your ears and eyes of what took place, because a lot of you all were there. You may have seen some of it, but your focus was on the game. And for those that weren't able to get there, you certainly watching on television. We're going to share a little sights and scenes so you can see what was the talk taken on about everything going in that perspective. So again, there essentially have been 4 Black College National Champions. That's Bowie State in some people's framework. And that's both in terms of what people call, or what we call, the mid-major division, and some say holistically overall. You've had publications out there that denoted FAMU as the national champion. Others have noted Jackson State as the national champions, and obviously some have noted South Carolina State. We're going to tell you what we think and why, and so you'll get a final little knock and check mark, if you would, based on us, because I think we're one of the last to do it, but that is on purpose. You know, we're meaningful in terms of what we do, and again, we don't always have to be first, but we're going to be substance in what we talk about. So with that being said, let me go to you, Luke, and talk about, as we did on Sunday, how do you come up with your framework? You don't necessarily have to say who you have, or you can share if it's pertinent in terms of who you see as the national champion at the time. But at least before you do that, give us the framework of how you come down with it.
Well, like you, Kenyatta, when I started my sports page back in 1994, I had all of the teams that, what you say holistically, I was doing a ranking regardless of whether they were 1AA or Division II. And I used to have this discussion when I started. Not long after I started, when HSRN came on, and a couple of the guys that they are no longer with us, may they rest in peace, is Wallace Dooley and LeCount Conaway, that both started working with HSRN. And when they unveiled that national platform, they specifically wanted to separate the two. And they would have conversations with me where they would call me on the phone, Luke, come on, man. You got to separate them. The scholarships difference, the such and such difference. We debated it significantly for hours at a time. And I said, listen, I respect what you're doing. Right. I'm not against what you're doing. I mean, but if you want to separate them for right now, I respect that. So to speak, to each his own. And at that time, back in the mid 90s, late 90s, I thought that the differences between the schools was probably not as markedly different as it is now.
That's right.
So only in the last, I would say 5-6 years have I decided to, as this difference between the two became, I thought, more and more pronounced, and even as little as 5 years ago, when Winston-Salem State went to the Division II national championship, I had them as the national champion, because they vanquished, and this has always been my criterion. If you're in Division II, you got to do something special to be the national champion. You got to really advance far into the playoffs. So one year Tuskegee was undefeated. I think they got 2 wins in the Division II playoffs. I had them at number 1. Winston-Salem State, again, I said when Connell Maynor was there, I went to the national championship game. It's not long after that I said, that I'm actually going to separate them. So the last 3 or 4 years, I've been doing a top 10 for both Division II as well as I call it Division I. You call it the mid-major, same thing as Division I. That's the FCS programs. And the Division II, NAIA, the Langstons of the world, the Edward Waters. I've had Langston in the top 10 in the Division II. If we were doing one poll, we really wouldn't do it. And one of my very good friends, Roscoe Nance, again, who may rest in peace, the legendary journalist that covered the SWAC as well as the NBA and international soccer for USA Today. Roscoe one time said to me, one of the reasons not to separate them, he was like, Luke, there's only 40 some odd playing football schools. If you're going to do 10 and 10, you're going to have to rank 20 of the teams. That's a lot of teams, if you're doing a top 10 to be ranking out of 40. Half of the schools would get ranked. And if you do that, and that's the case even now, some of the teams could have losing records, as opposed to the putting them all together. So if there's one thing Roscoe was opinionated. he had his opinion about all things sports, all things politics, all things social. And he always would do it in such a respectful way. We love him to death. I just had a memorial service for him out of Montgomery that I spoke on this past Sunday before the Celebration Bowl. But anyway, so that's what I do. That's how I do it, and I explain to people, I don't consider the Celebration Bowl to be the Black College National Championship game. It's not automatic. If for no other reason that there are 3 other FCS teams that are not in either the SWAC or the MEAC, who could, if they were playing very well in their respective conferences, could deserve to be above the SWAC or the MEAC. If they won some games in the playoffs, for example, if FAMU had won some games in the playoffs, for example, you might have gotten some, so if they're going, let's say, a couple of games deep into the playoffs, you might have had some people saying that FAMU, even though you've already said some have picked FAMU regardless. So that's how I do it. I do a Division I and a Division II. That's going to come out next week on my sports page, which comes out next Tuesday.
Nice. Great tease in terms of that. I really appreciate the way that you talked about breaking down how over a period of time, the delineation has changed. And I think for those that really follow this and like to understand, what we're referring to is at the FCS level, the scholarship maximum that you can go to is 63. At the Division II level is 36. At the NIA is 24. But even 20 years ago, people don't realize that a lot of the schools in the MEAC and SWAC were not even close to the maximum number of scholarships.
Exactly.
Most of them were doing maybe 50 some. That's on the high end. A lot were just doing 40 something.
Yeah.
And so for those Division II schools that were doing close to 36, that differential in terms of scholarship wasn't as big. I can tell you now, even Valley, in terms of next year, will be at full scholarship. So everybody in the SWAC is at full scholarship. And I can give you some of the reason that took place. When you've seen the transition of FCS programs, really 1AA, when they started having the ability, when they changed that nomenclature to 1AA to FCS and FBS, and you started seeing more of these FCS, FBS matchups. One of the criteria for a lot of schools that were choosing to play FCS programs, that they had to have the maximum, or really near the maximum number of scholarships for the win to count towards their bowl eligibility.
Right.
So it became important for the FCS programs to get as close as the 63 as possible if they wanted to play and continue to play those money games. Now that's a whole different conversation, because people know how I feel about the money games, but I at least want to give you these little individual nuggets and roadmaps to let you know how things transition and why we need to know the history. We can hold on to it, but why some things must change because society and the cultural components of it change. So I thought it was important to share that. We're going to hit this break and we'll come back on the other side and give you some news, give you some insides of the Celebration Bowl. And again, stick with us because we will release before the end of the show our national champion. That's Dr. Cavil's national champion. That's the major division. Remember, we've already released the mid-major division, which rightfully so went to Bowie State. And for me, a lot of the reason was that classification, but I thought it was important to make sure mid-major programs or Division II programs, as you said, were able to get their shine. And I thought a lot of times great seasons were not being represented enough because some people thought that the major division FCS programs were having great seasons, even though they may have a couple of more losses. They still had shown that they had better programs. Let's go to this quick break and we'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. They're out on assignment. So my guest with me today, the visiting professor, is none other than the great Carl Luke Williams. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. high-quality cigars, plus personal customer service with Slow Burn. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. It's more than a mobile lounge. It's an environment and an experience rich in history, luxury, and personality. An elegant extension of any celebration occasion. It's the perfect escape and meeting place, a space where you can relax or enjoy a shared passion. Have Slow Burn plan your next big event, or before you are planning to celebrate your win over your athletic rival, you can shop our collections at www.slowburnwaco.com.
But if they want to tab, I'ma do the dab, yeah. Enter the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. They're both out on assignment essentially. So we have none other than the visiting professor, Carl Luke Williams, bringing us some insights and updates. Before we get into a little more about the Celebration Bowl, we'll get into the ratings and give you some signs and inside the scenes, maybe some key people that we saw, takeaways, if you would, be your ears and eyes for those that couldn't get there for whatever reason. Let me shout out to the great folks that have jumped on here. Michael Knox, Michael Lee is in the house, Nelvin Short, Mary Allen, Ricky Burden as always, Lonnie Shaw, I see you. Bobby Knight, Dwight Moore, Chuck Hunt, always doing his thing. G Boom Holly is in the house. John Jenkins, Roderick, Byron Page, Dr. Holmes. Congratulations to you and your family, Odell Benders, and that's in terms of his father getting inducted into the SWAC Hall of Fame. Great chance to give him an interview. For you all that didn't see that, check out our interview from Friday in terms of episode 221 that we take you out on Radio Row and give you some great interviews, including with Coach Buddy Pugh before the game. We have Odell Benders and a couple of players as well, I should say, from South Carolina State, giving them the love that they deserve. It was exciting to interview them. You can see in their eyes, there was something there early. Karen Griffin. We have Reggie in here from the CIW, Tom Anderson. Who else we have? William E. Davis, Sarah Beverly, Rob J is in the house checking us out. Who else we have in here? Willie Alex Hine, Jarvis Austin. Stick with us. We'll give you some more shout outs. Keep them coming again. We will tell you before the end of the show, we're going to announce Dr. Cavil's HBCU Major Division champion. Essentially, most people realize it's up to basically 3 teams: Florida A&M Rattlers, Jackson State Tigers, and the South Carolina State Bulldogs. Who will we say is this year's HBCU Major Division champion? Remember, we separate the two, so we've already acknowledged 2 weeks ago the mid-major champion, which none other than the Bowie State Bulldogs. With that being said, is there some news out there that's relevant as things just keep churning? We can't get through the Celebration Bowl before some other moves are made, particularly in the football landscape. Do you have anything there to announce for us?
Well, the first one was, well, while we were at the Celebration Bowl on Friday, you know, my road dog, as I said, Stephen J. Gaither, is a graduate of Winston-Salem State, and he was waiting with bated breath as the Rams were making a decision as to who would be their next head coach. He was kind of hoping for something a little different, but the Rams decided to stay with interim head coach Robert Massey, who has been there for almost 3 years, replacing Keenus Boulware. He has, a 4-year contract that's already been approved by the board, $90,000 a year. He's only got a 7-21 record. No, I'm sorry. I'm not even 7-21. I think it's 7. I've forgotten. I put it on my page and I don't have it in front of me, but he's has a losing record. And one of the things that Steve mentioned in his story is that all of the previous coaches, the 4 previous coaches at Winston-Salem State, all 4 of them won multiple championships. And that goes back to Keenus Boulware, who Massey came in to replace. It goes back to Pete Richardson. It goes back to Bill Hayes, and it goes back to Kermit Blunt. So he's got a task in front of him. Before Bowie State won the last 3 CIAA championships, Winston-Salem State was a perennial player in the championship picture, always representing the South Division. So Robert Massey has a big job to get the Rams back into that. They've kind of fallen off over these last 3 years. So that was one big news. And probably the latest breaking news that just happened sometime today was down at Tuskegee University. And what happened was Tuskegee actually did not announce that Willie Slater, their longtime coach, I think he'd been there 13 years, was stepping down as both the coach and the athletic director. And surprise, surprise, they announced today that the new coach and athletic director is none other than former Miles head coach and athletic director Reginald Ruffin, who is now moving over from Miles to Tuskegee. He formerly worked under Coach Willie Slater at Tuskegee, but now he is going from Miles to Tuskegee. He had actually, in his 9 years, I think it was, at Miles, established himself as the power in the SIAC, particularly in the SIAC West. They dethroned Tuskegee. They've beaten Tuskegee, I think it's 3 of the last 4 years, and he's coming back to Tuskegee. And if I'm not mistaken, Doc, I think he's a graduate of Tuskegee. So he's kind of coming home after going and establishing himself at Miles. And from the standpoint of SIAC, it couldn't be a better move for Tuskegee to be bringing the man who's dominated the conference over the last half decade while he's at Miles.
Yeah, that's interesting to make sure that he can bring Tuskegee back to relevance. A huge historical program, as all those that follow HBCU know. Some of the new folks that come on board, they have the most wins out of HBCU. To give you some indication in terms of history, a lot of championships, firstly early, and then about a decade ago, they were one of the schools that was similar to Winston-Salem State and Bowie, where they were cutting that edge and pushing for a national championship. They had the benefit at that time that they would at least play Alabama State regularly in the Turkey Day Classic. So they had a head-to-head matchup that they could get some edge on the FCS. And then oftentimes they would also play Alabama A&M. So that was fascinating during that era, which was one of the reasons at that time why I decided to split the 2 divisions. So we'll talk about that a little more. The other announcement I wanted to maybe get your thoughts on is announced today also in terms of the Hall of Fame game with Winston-Salem State that you just talked about with the head coach that they'll play in the 2020 Black College Hall of Fame Classic. They haven't announced who they will play against yet, but that's out there with Massey leading the way. So that's fascinating to see what that might look at. Any thoughts on that for you?
No, in talking about those 2 programs, Winston-Salem State and Tuskegee, both of them were former dominant programs and looking to return to that dominance, and funny with Steve is bummed out on Friday from the time that Massey was announced. He was hoping that they would go in another direction. And let me tell you who were some of the candidates. One of them was Terrence Graves, the man who replaced Broderick Fobbs on an interim basis at Grambling before they hired Hugh Jackson. Terrence Graves is a Winston-Salem State. He's a Winston-Salem State grad, and he played for Pete Richardson at Winston-Salem State and eventually coached with Pete Richardson at Southern. So there were many who wanted him. Another name that was thrown into the hat was Torrey Woodbury. He is an NFL scout, former quarterback for Winston-Salem State. Some were saying that they wanted him to take the job. They kind of wanted a new face. They wanted somebody that could bring a new perspective. Massey has been there for 3 years. If you include the pandemic year that they didn't play in the 2020 season, he's really been there 2 seasons, but 3 seasons total. And Winston-Salem State, Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State is the big battle in the CIAA West. They have been the 2 champions from the CIAA West over the last 10 years. No one else has won a championship. Maybe in that time, Shaw won one championship. But other than that, those have been the 2 schools. And for the last 2 or 3 years, Fayetteville State under Richard Moore has dominated Winston-Salem State. So they were kind of looking for a new face, so to speak. So, to see those 2 come along, one that's getting a proven winner in Reginald Rutherford, and Winston-Salem State choosing to stick with Robert Massey says a whole lot. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, one thing that's intriguing to me is the number at the Division II level, how the public institutions have dominated that space outside of, like you said, Tuskegee, and most recently in the SIAC, Miles College. But in the CIAA, it's been public institutions, and obviously you have Albany State, what they've been able to do. And when you really go back a little further than that, Fort Valley State. So intriguing to me to see what that looks like and how that may churn during the years. Let's get into this next break, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about the Celebration Bowl, and then I'll let you get your comments in when we come back after that break. Stick with us again. We will get into Dr. Cavil's Major Division HBCU National Champion. So stick with it. It's coming, I promise, and it will be good. You'll want to wait and you want to hear what we have to share with you, because we got a nice little treat for you before the end of the show in terms of what that would look like. Stick with it. We'll be right back after this break, and we'll take you inside the big lights, all the things that you want to hear about the 2021 Cricket Wireless Celebration Bowl in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You've heard a lot of stuff coming up, there's sellouts and all these kind of things, but we're going to bring you some more. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Carlos Brown, letting you know that we're on the move. You can now catch the Carlos Brown Show beginning this July on the Black College Sports Network each and every Saturday from 11 to 1 Eastern Time. That's 10 to 12 Central Time. Same time, new place. On Facebook at the Carlos Brown Show and Black College Sports Network. Online at www.mybcsn.net, and on the BCSN app, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. They're out on assignments. We have none other than the visiting professor, Carl Luke Williams. We're going to get into the sights and sounds of the 2021 Cricket Wireless Celebration. Before that, did you have any final thought that you want to put on some of that other news that was out there?
Yeah, I was just mentioning when you said that Winston-Salem State will be playing in the Hall of Fame game up in Camden, Ohio. I was just saying that's putting a lot of pressure on Coach Massey. Now he's had the interim tag removed. He's going to go into a big national high-profile game. It's going to be a real test of him. And look, one of the things they're saying at Winston-Salem State that they have not done in the last couple of years is recruit very well. They have not kind of resupplied on the talent level. And maybe it was because he was just an interim and nobody wanted to commit while he was just an interim, knowing that he could recruit them today and a new guy could come in tomorrow, and change up everything. Exactly. So now that he's the head coach, let's see what he does, see how he lines them up, how he signs folks, come February for the signing day, see what kind of class he brings in to try to resupply the Rams with some talent. We'll see. That's good. It's a good thing that he's now out of that interim job and he's now the permanent head coach.
To your point, you see that down over at Prairie View. You didn't get a lot of news with the signings. You've seen Southern with all the December early signings they have. FAMU has really went deep in terms of their 3-4 star signings. You talk about Alabama A&M. They have a huge class of early signings, and from those Division I transfer, I think they had 2 of them, both a wide receiver and a quarterback out of Miami that just comes in. And obviously everybody's heard what's going on at Jackson State in terms of not only their Division I transfer signings, their other big signings, but also in terms of the number 1 recruit in most publications, and in some of them number 2 recruit coming in to play both cornerback and wide receiver this past weekend. So big news. With that being said, let's get into this 2021 Cricket Wireless Celebration Bowl. I do want to talk about these ratings and give some people some breakdown on that. But before we get too far into that, I want to know what was some of the sights and things that you saw. What were the big news or things that really caught your eye in terms of the Celebration Bowl?
Well, obviously, some of them were now announced. Some of them were the events. I thought it was very big in the pregame to have Pro Football Hall of Famers Donnie Shell, as well as
that was huge.
As well as Harry Carson, as well as Robert Brazil from Jackson State. I mean, it just speaks to the depth of the history of HBCU football to have them come out and be honorary captains, come out for the coin toss. I thought that was so beautiful. Very great example. You know, how many schools can enter this with that kind of legacy that they are trading upon. Thought that was big. Obviously, that was a big event on Friday as Dr. Thomas, who as of the last day of this month of December will be out as the commissioner of the Mideastern Athletic Conference. They had a toast and roast for him on Friday, celebration toast and roast on Friday. That was a big event over the weekend, sold out event. He is the guy really that came up with the idea of the Celebration Bowl and had to sell it to not only his athletic directors, but the presidents of his conference, and then to sell it also to the presidents of the SWAC conference, to eschew the FCS playoffs and send their champions to this game with 6 years in. And I don't think anybody has any regrets. As a matter of fact, I think those who were skeptical have been sold as of now. The third item I had, and I focused this on my page this week. I'm trying to remember exactly what the third one was. There's one more I can't think of. It'll come back to me, Kenyatta. But I talked to the AD at North Carolina A&T today, and I told him that Buddy Pugh talked about the fact that the Celebration Bowl wanted to fly South Carolina State down from Orangeburg, a short trip, a 45-minute flight to Atlanta. And Buddy Pugh said, "Why are we going to fly? We can just catch the bus." And then they convinced him to let Delta bring the team in. And Buddy Pugh talked about on Friday in the press conference just how wonderful the trip was, how Delta just treated them royally. And when I talked to the AD at North Carolina A&T tonight, who is what's my man's name? Earl Hilton. I'm sorry. And I was telling Earl about the event. A&T had a basketball game tonight that I came to before we got on. And he told me that they bust every year from Greensboro. They bust to Atlanta. They didn't have a chartered flight, private jet that Delta provided. So he was saying that all 4 times that they came by bus. So that was one of the amenities that they added this year, to fly both teams in, really to give them more of a bowl experience. Because, I don't know, the trip from Orangeburg to Atlanta is probably 2 hours by car or 2.5 hours by bus. But he really talked about how the Delta treated him so well that, he said, I would have been fine to ride the bus, but it was just out of this world with all the things that Delta did for them. So those are one. There's one other thing that'll come back to me, but go ahead in terms of what you have from the Celebration Bowl.
No, shout outs to the Executive Director, John Grant. When you talk about the Hall of Famers on the Field Classic, you're talking about getting Delta to sponsor the flights for both teams, the next level stuff. So you can continue to see that this is an event now. You have folks coming from everywhere. This is similar to homecomings, if you would. Obviously, the next level up for Bayou Classic, Magic City Classic, the CIAA. It is officially an event. And to your point, when you talk about eschewing the playoffs for this game, that's why to some degree you hear ESPN and John Grant talking about this being a championship game in a lot of ways. And obviously people have how they feel about it. But essentially, when you think about it, for the most part, you're going to have the best two teams. There may be one or two arguably other teams, but you're going to have, for the most part, year out, the best two teams in this game. So it's easy in a lot of ways to see how this is a national championship game. You can go talk to BJ Jones and check out a show that I did with him on Sunday night that really broke down the history. So you can get a historical arc, so you're really informed about where the newspaper and how a quote unquote mythical championship, which was done for both HBCUs and historically white colleges. Before I get too far, I did want to talk about the ratings. The ratings for this were the third highest ratings in terms of that weekend of bowl games. It was the second highest rating since 2019. And we'll take even a deeper dive in that a little more about the ratings. But I did want to get into the poll. So every indication shows that everything about this bowl game is on another level. So when you come in and you participated, because there's one guy that put out there, and to his credit, he said Sunday, we may have been lagging a little bit, that we were, not our normal selves. And I think he thought maybe it's because the Jackson State didn't win or whatever. And for us, I don't think people understand is like, while we may be fans of our teams and we may be fans of a conference, we're all about HBCU sports. You can never get the coverage we talk about, even today when we give you all of the conference, even GCAC. So if you look at this regular, you cannot deny that we provide all information to coaches. And the only reason you may not see more of your coaches on here, that's because you need to talk to your coaches and the SID. They haven't reached out to get on the show. It's a lot of energy and effort for us to do that. And we got down there Wednesday, and people don't understand. We're not down there just getting it done. We're putting in work. And people don't realize that doing this and doing homework and the prep work, there is a lot of energy, and you're up long hours all day. And because the thing is such a big event, when we talk about the Celebration Bowl, you're going nonstop. And then when you take a break, you're up late in the hours just eating and mixing, because you still want to get a little bit of the socialization in there. And you need the network. People don't understand the reason that we're able to have access to these folks, because we have the networks. Enough of that. Let's get into the poll rankings. I want to get into these poll rankings.
Let me say one thing. I realized the thing that I had not spoken about is two things real quick. One was the fact that the Celebration Bowl re-upped with the Mercedes-Benz Stadium for another 6 years. That's big. Yeah, so big. you can set your schedule for that weekend in December, that the game will be in Atlanta at the Celebration Bowl for the next 6 years. And the last thing I was to mention was how much more media coverage there was this year. There's been plenty of room in the press room downstairs on the field level and upstairs. It's been, it was like, it could have been 10 of us up there a couple of years ago. And like, what Mark Gray said, it says reporters masquerading as empty seats in the press room upstairs. But this year it was very full. Everybody was there. USA Today. I was sitting next to a reporter from The Athletic. Of course, the Undefeated was there. So if there's so many that are now feeling the heat, the buzz of HBCU sports, and I would attribute a great portion of that to one Dion coach Prime Sanders. He has really moved the needle. And I was expecting these ratings really to be over the first one, but that's usually the case. The first one generates the greatest amount of interest. That's why it was so significant this year that it was a sellout, that it was usually the first year through the whole time of the Heritage Bowl, they never topped the first year. This topped the first year, and that only bodes well, I think, going forward.
Great point. I'm glad you got that in there. Let's pull up the poll before we take this last break. Let's start with the top 10, and we can go through this pretty quickly, because when you get in the top 10, no changes here. Number 10, North Carolina A&T. At number 9, we have Hampton Pirates. Both of those teams sit at 5 and 6. Then you get into number 8, which is Norfolk State Spartans, finishing at 6 and 3. At number 7, you have none other than Alcorn State Braves, finishing the school season at 6 and 5 there in terms of what they were able to get done. And then you have at number 6, you get back into it with North Carolina Central as they finish the season strong in a lot of ways with the big victory, sitting at also 6-5. Let's get into the top 5, if you would, as we get things going. Number 5, A&M Panthers stay at the number 5 spot as they continue on. At number 4, we have none other than Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs. Well, let's get in this break. We'll come back and we'll give you the top 3 to give you a little more as we tease it out. We're going to finish up with the top 3 teams and let you know who is number 1. We'll come back after this break and give you who ultimately will become Dr. Cavil's 2021 Major Division champions. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
tofu, and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
in downtown Atlanta.
For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992
or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com.
For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell them mama hungry.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Let's finish with the countdown. I think as you see with this guest, it probably shouldn't surprise you, but let's do the formalities. At number 3, you have Florida A&M Rattlers finish off the season at 9-3, 7-1, 2 first place votes. At number 2, you have the Jackson State Tigers 11-2, 8-0, 5 first place votes, 121 points. They were defeated by the number 1 team, South Carolina State Bulldogs, 7-5, 5-0, and that was in the Celebration Bowl, 31-10, as the Bulldogs get it done. And we have none other than Coach Hugh right here to accept and be acknowledged as the 2021 Dr. Cavil's Major Division HBCU National Champions presented by slowburnwaco.com. This is the first title under Coach Pugh for this award. His legacy is second to none. The Bulldogs champion of the MEAC defeated Jackson State Tigers, as I said, of the SWAC 31-10 in the 2021 Cricket Wireless Celebration Bowl in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta this past Saturday. South Carolina State Programs is a historic program recognized with 8 HBCU national champions, 1976, 1977, 1981, 1982, 1994, 2008, 2009, and now 2021. Welcome to the show, Coach Hugh.
Hey, Dr. Cavil, how are you today?
I'm doing well, doing well. Congratulations. How you feel, man? I know you got all the confetti already.
Yeah, we can hear you, we can hear you, Coach. Coach, congratulations.
Thanks a bunch. Hey, Luke, how you?
I'm doing fine, man. I didn't get a chance to come down to the post-game press conference, shake your hand, and offer congratulations, but I'm sure you know I was right there with you. Big win, man. Great win. My first question would be how do you place this one in the other big wins that you had? Where was this ranked?
Well, it's the best yet, I guess, because it's the last one. Anytime you start ranking them, the one that's most recent to you, is always, I guess, maybe the best one. But Luke, who knows? We've had so much fun around here until we just try to see if we can win a game and move on. We don't really wallow in the, actual glory of the game very much. After we play it, we move on. And so at this point, I'm thinking about next year. We're talking about recruiting already. So we had a big recruiting meeting today.
Well, I noticed that. I noticed that after the game, your guys weren't all jumping around when A&T has won. They've been wallowing on the ground, doing snow angels and whatnot. And Stephen Gaither said he had to tell your guys, go over there and celebrate, man. Go get on the ground, wallow around and everything. But I understand when you've had the kind of success that you've had, that, winning is almost expected. But I certainly was not expected this time around. Everybody thought you were a huge underdog. They were just waiting to see you guys get shellacked. So what was involved in your preparation to get them to play lights out like they did?
Well, I think we even kind of disrespected our offense a little bit because we told them, say, guys, all we want you to do is just don't lose the daggone football game. Don't go out there and turn the football over and give them short fields. And special teams pretty much the same. We told them, say, hey, don't let them return a punt. Don't let them return a kick. Don't do something crazy, get a punt blocked or something of that nature. If we don't necessarily give them some kind of, unusual kind of score that way, then we didn't think they could really do much to our defense. And lo and behold, the second time they get the ball, they drove right down the field and scored on us. So I was worried because we were ugly on offense. I mean, we didn't have any sign of life at that time. We go into the middle of the second quarter. Let's face it, we hadn't done a thing. And,
that's right.
It was not pretty. So at that point, we got our defense to make a play for us. Actually, the guy who made the play for us was the punter because that kick that he made, and if we had blocked it just right, we could have actually run that thing for a fake punt. But you know what? We were better off with them having it because they got a lot. They gave it to us a lot closer to the goal line than our offense could have gotten it at that point. So we get down there, we get the ball at the 5-yard line, we get it in by some grace of God. And at that point, then we're going about the task of kind of getting ourselves kind of righted a little bit. But let me tell you, up to that point, man, I was worried. I really was.
Was there any thought, and I know, Kenyatta, don't let me hog all the questions. Was there any thought at the break?
Go ahead. Go follow up. I'll jump in there. You're doing a great job.
Was there any thought at the break of pulling Corey, of pulling Fields?
No, we didn't have anybody else because our second team guy was not even there. He had another issue. We had 2 or 3 guys that didn't play in the game because of different kinds of university style kind of issues, for lack of a better way of putting it, okay? But they didn't play. So in that particular case, the next guy we had was our 3. So the only thing we could have done at that point was go Wildcat. And we couldn't run the football, so it wasn't no way in the world I was going to go to a formation where they knew that we were going to run the football. It was almost what they did when they got over in the middle of the third quarter and they pulled their back and went with the empty formation, excuse me, where they only just had the 5 receivers out there, no running game. At that point, I said, "Ooh, I could go over here and have a seat," because I knew that we do that against our defense a lot. And let me tell you what, when they get a chance to know you're gonna throw it and can really run to you and try to doggone tackle you, let me tell you, boy, this is a problem. It is a problem.
Well, that young boy, the young Sanders, was running for his life the whole day. And listen, I've talked to you about this many times. South Carolina State is known for its defense. It's Deacon Jones, Donnie Shell, Harry Carson, as well as many others, Darius Leonard. And you said, I've asked you before, how do you get these defensive players out of South Carolina? They come with a different little edge about them. But your guys, it seemed, played with an edge. They were quicker. And I don't know, I was wondering, do you favor quick linemen as opposed to the big, bulky hole pluggers, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure. If you go back and take a good look at that film, and today I had a good chance to really go through it pretty good and look at our defensive line against their offensive line, against Jackson's offensive line. Their offensive linemen weren't nearly as athletic as ours. Those guys were so big until they kind of slopped around a little bit. So we beat them up pretty good in the offensive front, which took away their run game. Now, they can pass pro really well, but at the same time, if you've got to actually do something that's going to cause a little bit, that's going to need a little bit of quickness, then they can't do it. So we'll always say, you don't ever see South Carolina State with a big fat team. Now, we'll have a guy in a position because we've gotten down to a spot where we don't have a choice. But in a situation where if we can get a little thinner guy, who's got a little bit of athleticism about him, then that's always our style of play.
I got one.
Let me.
Sure. Go ahead.
In terms of
I'll come back.
Jumping in there in terms, we came with you on that Friday, and we had you at Radio Row. You had your defensive stalwart. Talk about those young men and what they do special in terms of those that we interviewed on Friday.
I'm thinking who you had. You had your cornerback there and your defensive lineman. Young man that you said, hey, hard. Yeah, you had Jacoby Durant.
Yep.
You had the defensive lineman 34, Jablonski Green.
Green.
Jablonski was really, a man amongst boys out there. So he was the guy that caused about half of it. Well, Patrick Garboat did also. Both of the defensive ends were really good. And both guys are smaller guys. Well, actually, Jablonski is a 280-pound guy. He just doesn't look it that way, and he's athletic.
Yeah, he carries it really well. Yeah,
but the Kobe played really well, and so he kind of took away, either 7 or 10 or from time to time from them, so they didn't have, an opportunity to get into big plays in the passing game. And then we had a great pass rush with those guys, and we got some pass rush with our linebackers too, because BJ Davis 5 played a big game for us. He really ran around and made a lot of plays for us, but all those guys are just smaller, athletic guys. You're just so much better off. And when they say it's the dog in you, it's how bad you are. It's the inside stuff. That's what makes the difference in these guys. And so you can pretty much bet that anytime, these guys are on the field, there's no fear there, and they're going to always run like heck to the ball. And the only thing that actually slows them down is putting them in conflict of some sort, putting them in a situation where they got some doubt as to where they're going. But if they feel like they know exactly, where they're headed, and they got a pretty good beat on what they're trying to get stopped, then let me tell you, they are really, really good.
Let me get one back in here, and then I'll let Luke finish up with a couple of questions. When you talk about the dog in your players, you even had that on special teams, because your special teams was very special. I want to talk about your decisions to do that, but Luke brought it to my attention. One of the big plays that really oftentimes the Jackson State thrives on is their special teams. And it looked like they may have gotten that play, but then your kicker comes in and makes this beautiful tackle. I didn't even realize it was the kicker because he was so far up the field. Usually it's the last person, even though he probably saved the touchdown because that hole was splitting in there. But the athleticism he had in his tackle was something of itself. Talk about your decision, that young man, and then your decision of what you decided to do in your kickoff game. It was similar to what we saw Southern do against Jackson State. It was pretty effective.
Well, the decision was that he knew that he was supposed to punt the ball out of bounds. And in a case where if you punt it out of bounds, then you don't have to worry about tackling the guy because the guy can't get the football and run with it. But because he tackled the ball in, because the ball was punted in bounds, that he knew that he better get his butt on and tackle that guy, because I told him, I said, if you kick this ball in bounds, your ass better be ready to tackle. I said, because we can't stop that guy because he is fat as hell, and these fat cats we got out here ain't going to be able to stop him. So that's why he was running so fast, because he knew that if he didn't tackle that guy, he had to come back on that sideline, and I might knock hell out of him.
That's funny, Coach. That's funny. That is funny.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Go ahead.
Here's the one I got for you, Coach. I came down to your homecoming game, and two people in your press box said to me, if Shaq Davis had the work ethic of a Darius Leonard or somebody, he'd be as good as any receiver in the country. Yeah. Well, he showed up for you on Saturday. Talk a little bit about Shaquan Davis.
Well, yeah. Well, let me tell you, so everybody's got his strengths and weaknesses, Luke. And Shaq's got, first of all, he's got an unbelievable body. The guy, was blessed in a way where, he ought to be able to have a chance to go to the next level. But at the same time, nobody knows how hard it is for a guy to develop and actually get to the point where he can actually control that body. That's a big old body to be doing all the kind of stuff that he's got to do. So, yeah, it would be nice if he was better at this stage of the game, but he's got 2 more years. He's going to have an opportunity, I'm thinking, to, continue to develop. Our quarterback is a little bit inaccurate too. So you put those 2 ingredients together, you got a coordination that you got to kind of put together in a way where both guys got to get on the same page in some regard. So, yeah, Shaq's dropped some balls and hadn't played quite as well as I would like for him to play. Wolverine was a little more, I guess, dependable guy for us this past year, but Shaq's made some plays for us. And he came to the forefront in the game Saturday. So, maybe he came, and maybe that was his coming out party Saturday. Maybe next year.
Yeah, good time to have it.
Kind of stuff. Yeah, he had a great game and at a great time because we needed him at that point, and it worked out for us. But I love the kid, and I think that he'll be a great player for us down the road a piece. And the biggest thing I worry about right now is somebody talking him out of here a little bit before he needs to leave. He needs he needs to play another year at least. And I think that would be a great for his development. But at the same time, you never know who's in these guys' ears at this point. And somebody will try to do something to him, that'll benefit them that might not be the best interest of his, in his overall development.
Well said. Well, we're going to get you out of here. I know you're feeling just a little bit under the weather. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to do that. But we would be remiss if we didn't give you the floor and allow you to say some thoughts or comments, or maybe some thanks and kudos for whoever you would like to. So at this point, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all having me, first off. And of course, the feelings that I had for all of the different folk that I ran into and was involved with at the Celebration Bowl. It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us. And I can tell you that I had no idea, going in there, that we could be, that kind of football team under those kind of circumstances. But it was a lot of fun. And, I'm proud of what we did. And our fan base has been just out of their mind excited, about what's going on. So we look forward to, getting a couple of days off and trying to figure out exactly what we've got to do from here and going to the next year. But at the same time, it's a wonderful time at South Carolina State University. We had all kind of great things to happen here for the last couple of days and about a week or so. Everything from the president to our game. Our basketball team is starting to play really well. I don't know if you realize that. I hadn't heard whether they won or not tonight. They won 4 or 5 in a row. They beat South Florida the other night. And we're excited as all get out about them getting going again. So it's that time of year. So South Carolina State's got a chance right now to turn the corner. We can really do some things, I'm thinking, to really get ourselves going in the right direction. So we're looking forward to it. We think we've got a great young interim president. We are really excited about Alex Conyers and what he's putting in place to, to run our university. So we look forward to seeing, exactly what all we can do to continue to develop and build on this momentum that we've created here, starting with football, starting with the president, starting with all the different kinds of things, that we've had here in the last couple of days.
Well, hey, Coach, you're a big part of that, man. You're a big part of that. Congratulations. Much success. Hope you feel much better. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. Hey, come to Orangeburg and see us sometime, guys.
Absolutely.
I'll do that. Certainly have a good reason to do it now. We'll find a way to get there. And we appreciate the invite. With that invite, you can count. We'll be there. With this, you're listening to Dr. Phil's 2021 Major Division HBCU National Champion head coach, Buddy Pugh, getting it done for the South Carolina State Bulldogs. And as he said, congratulations to the president. Make sure you give our congratulations to him. Congratulations to you, and congratulations to the team and the fans, as well as the MEAC, because they deserve it. On top, getting it done, well deserved. Adding this national champion to all the other 7. Now at number 8, Coach Pugh, you've done it. You put your hand in, and we appreciate you and your time so much. That'll do it for us. This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. They're both out on assignment. So we brought in the visiting professor, if you would, Carl Luke Williams. Make sure you check out all his information. You can go to the Onnidan site. That's www.onnidan.com. Email him. Give him the email again, Luke, so they can get your weekly reports.
bcsbeditor@gmail.com. bcsbeditor@gmail.com, and for free, we'll add you to the mailing list. Thanks for having me, Doc. Enjoy.
Again, we want to. No problem. No problem. Thank you again, Coach. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday. We might take a break on Thursday for Christmas, so we'll get you that information, but we'll be right back with you. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's Dr. KENYATTHCAVIL. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports on Twitter. That's Facebook and YouTube at Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Lou?
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it. Look forward to it again. Hope to join you again soon.
No lecture. Dismiss.